Good morning and welcome to the Tale of Our Cities. This event is sponsored by Michael Baker International. I would like to acknowledge our dignitaries. Dearborn Heights Mayor Bill Bazzi, Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, Dearborn City Council persons Mike Serini and Leslie Herrick, Dearborn Heights City Council persons Nancy Breyer and Bob Constant. Welcome. It is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Aisha Maxwell, manager of the entrepreneurial program at Access Dearborn. Access is one of the most comprehensive Arab American community nonprofit in the United States. With 10 locations and more than 120 programs servicing Metro Detroit, Access offers a wide range of social, economic, health, and educational services to a diverse population. It is my pleasure to welcome Aisha and thank her for moderating today's conversation with our mayors.
Hello, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, distinguished guests and fellow members of the Dearborn Area Chamber of Commerce. It is with great enthusiasm and gratitude that I stand before you today as a newly elected board member. I am honored to be a part of an organization that plays a pivotal role in fostering economic growth, collaboration, and community prosperity. The Dearborn Area Chamber of Commerce has a rich history of supporting local businesses, advocating for economic development, and creating a strong network of professionals. As a new board member, I am committed to building on these foundations and working collectively with each of you to ensure continued success and prosperity for our businesses and community. It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guests today for today's discussion on the future of the community of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. Firstly, we are honored to have Mayor Abdullah Hammoud of the City of Dearborn with us today. Mayor Hammoud has been a dedicated public servant, committed to enhancing the quality of life for Dearborn residents. His visionary leadership has driven the positive change and economic development in our city. And secondly, I'm happy to welcome Mayor Bill Bazzi of Dearborn Heights. Mayor Bazzi's passion for community, well-being, and strategic governance has positioned Dearborn Heights as a dynamic and thriving city. Today, we have the unique opportunity to gain insights from both mayors regarding the future of both communities. So today, let's engage in fruitful discussion, exploring the strategies, challenges, and opportunities that will shape the future landscape of Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, and the coming year. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mayor Hammoud and Mayor Bazzi. Thank you for joining us. Could you please come up? Okay, so this question is for, I'll ask it for you, Mayor Hammoud, and Mayor Bazzi, you can just piggyback. What specific initiatives or projects are in place to address the current challenges and/or opportunities that are unique to Dearborn, and how do you envision them shaping the city's future? Is it working? Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And just also want to recognize Councilman Ken Harris, who's also here. It's a cold morning. It is. And so that means my brain will take a little bit of time to get going. I usually jump right into this, and I wasn't ready. So there's a lot happening in the city of Dearborn. A lot of unique challenges that we face, but challenges that are not only set here in Southeast Michigan. You know, I'm flying out actually today to the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Washington, D.C., which is the largest organization for mayors across the country, bipartisan organization, or a nonpartisan organization, if you like it. And when we get together, we collectively discuss what issues that we're all tackling, how to recycle some of the ideas that might be working in other parts of the country, and it can be replicated right here, maybe with a twist that applies uniquely to the city of Dearborn. What I can tell you as I look towards 2024 is that there's a lot of unique opportunities that Dearborn has. You know, we were the fastest growing city in the state of Michigan according to the last census. We're the 7th largest city, the 3rd largest school district. We want to continue on that pathway for economic growth. And if you've been listening to any of the conversations happening across the state, one of the center conversations is how to grow Michigan. And I really think that if you look at Dearborn, Dearborn has the answers and Dearborn is the solution. You know, we are positioned to be a welcoming city that's home to many immigrants and refugees as a starting point throughout the state of Michigan. We have a very young population, if you don't know. The average age in the state of Michigan is 40 years of age. In Dearborn, that's closer to 30. 50% of our population is under the age of 25, which I think is absolutely phenomenal and necessary for growth. But if you look at all the research that's out there about how to continue on growing your population, this idea of placemaking actually rises to the top. If you look to metros, and I hate to say this, such as Columbus, Ohio, or Indianapolis, what they've been doing phenomenally well is actually placemaking. Making it so that when you come to the city, there's something to do for you and your family. It's encouraging young people to stay after they graduate. Things that we'd like to do even better here in the city of Dearborn. And that's hopefully what we're going to stay on track to do in 2024. And I imagine we'll get into some of the details of the rest of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to everyone. And actually, it gave me a little bit of time to talk a little bit more than I did before. We have a lot of things going on in Dearborn Heights. For the last several years, there's a lot of things that we were subcontracting a lot of the work outside, so companies to do the work. So over the last couple of years actually, we tried to bring everything in-house. So we have, we brought in our city engineer and our IT we brought in-house thanks to Mayor Hammoud for almost tripling the budget for IT. So we decided to bring it in-house. So we brought in an IT department. So there's also in the last little over a year, the Van Born corridor. We had, for the last probably 2 years or so, 2.5 years, we were working with Taylor, trying to do kind of like a corridor on Van Born to partner with Dearborn Heights. So we came up with an ordinance, and that ordinance did pass both Council, Dearborn Heights, and also Taylor. So now we have an ordinance. If any business that operates in that area, new business, would have to go through, make sure it's for the ordinance that we created, both Taylor and Dearborn Heights. Also, one of the things we're looking at trying to get grants for the businesses on Van Born, how to see if we can get grants, to give businesses some money to improve the aesthetics of that area or their business. So we're working on something with that as well. Also, we're looking at doing another, corridor or even like a DDA, on Warren for now. So still trying to build my team. We have a lot of great things also going on in Dearborn Heights. One of the things is we tighten up on a lot of the ordinances to the city, and we're actually attracting a lot of businesses coming into our city. There's buildings that have been vacant for at least a couple decades that now a lot of businesses, just within the last month and a half, we have 3 businesses that opened up in buildings that have been vacant for years, for over 10 to 15 years. So that's positive. So a lot of businesses are coming into the city of Dearborn Heights. We have a lot of residents that are actually building newer homes in the city, even though we don't have that much properties, but we do have a lot of property that actually city owns. So we have to probably put those up on auction here shortly, so we have it up for bid. So we're going to try to sell all the properties, commercial, then we have lots, we have also homes that the city owns that we shouldn't. They should go through homeowner occupied or businesses to bring in more revenue, tax revenue to the city. So there's a lot of great things happening, and we have a great team in place. One of the good things is, we're attracting a lot of new talent as well, people that want to work in the city. We have a lot of, I know a lot of police departments that have issues bringing police officers into the city. We have a lot of applicants. We've been hiring a lot of police officers also.
Awesome, thank you. In the context of economic development, how are equity and inclusion principles guiding decision-making and initiatives within Dearborn and Dearborn Heights?
Thank you for that question. It feels like I'm always debating Bill Bazzi. Election's not for a few more years. You know, we did something different. When we came into office, and if you're a small business owner, and you know, many of the faces you are, your interactions with Dearborn were basically you walked in, you got your CFO, we gave you a high five, and we said, we'll see you never again. That was pretty much the extent of the relationship that you had with economic development. It was more painful than anything. It was somebody showing up to let you know that you didn't pull the right permit, or the work that your contractor had done was subpar, and we're going to request these 25 things at the first inspection, then change that list on you at the second inspection and tell you that you didn't do everything we asked for. We actually now hired a team of business liaisons. These liaisons actually go out and they're tasked with visiting a number of businesses each and every single week. And in the last year alone, visited over 1,000 businesses across the city of Dearborn. And their goal is to listen to those business owners, to ask them, what would it take for you to expand? What grant do you need to help improve? Maybe it's a facade improvement grant, to what Mayor Bill Bazzi spoke to. Maybe it's a grant to help move in your grease trap, rather than it being outdoors and being a source of food for vermin and rats. Let's try to get you a grant to move that indoors and improve the aesthetics outside the parking lot. Maybe you're looking for a second location and not sure where to go. We have some land that we own, or we can work with fellow business owners that own some of the parcels that you're interested in. And that really drives the equity equation across the city of Dearborn. When we're sitting at the table of the business owner, rather than having them come to us, we're going to them and asking them, what more would you like out of your city government? If you look at the events that we hosted over the last year, from Ramadan nights to the summer market, we also had record turnout. I mean, over 1 month throughout the Ramadan nights event, we saw over 50,000 people come through our downtown West Dearborn because of that event. If we look at the success of our restaurant week, in this last year, we had record participation in Restaurant Week. Over 50 restaurants participated, and we began to measure the data. In that 1 week alone, because of the social media efforts of this business liaison team, on average, those restaurant owners saw an over 25% increase in revenue for that week. And so that's also just adding to the formula of how we can be more proactive and ensure that we're listening to those business owners, recognizing their needs, and then hopefully trying to deliver, not trying to be just those pests that come out to you only when you need a CFO, only when the business changes of hands, or when you're trying to do some work under the table and we ultimately catch you. So we're trying to have a more positive relationship, and I think that's really beginning to change the culture across the city of Dearborn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Elections next year, Mayor. So one of the things that I just go back a little bit. So we had, several years ago, I was actually in Dearborn. It was one of my favorite restaurants. I walked to the owner, we're talking, I'm like, hey, why don't you open one of these restaurants? I was actually on council at the time. Why don't you open this restaurant in Dearborn Heights? Why'd you open it in Dearborn? He wasn't even the mayor, so I don't feel bad. But the guy said, well, I tried to open in Dearborn Heights, but there was so much obstacles. Like, it was ridiculous the way, like, if somebody wants to open a business in Dearborn Heights, there was so many roadblocks that they were putting to businesses, and it relied only on like one person for certain things, for a permit or anything like that. So they had to go through one person, which was actually ridiculous. So one of the things that when I became the mayor, the first thing I did is I wanted to remove all these roadblocks. And you can see a lot of businesses coming into the city, a lot more now than before, is because we did remove all the roadblocks. We try to help out the businesses, anything they need. My door's always open. Actually, some businesses come to me, they're like, hey, I'm trying to do this here, I can't get to something for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they have a grand opening. So we meet with them, with the building department, whoever is involved, try to see what we can do. So even if we have to pay overtime for people to come in just to make sure that these folks can open their businesses. Also, the other thing that I started doing is we do business tours. We go all over the city, and we pick few businesses, like every month or every week. We try to promote that business, and we blast it on social media. Also, we have a cable channel, and anywhere we could do, anything we could do to actually promote that business. So that's, it's been positive. A lot of businesses have reached out, they want to do a business tour, so it's kind of a free advertisement for them. It doesn't cost them anything. We just come in for 15 minutes, we do an event with them and just ask them, questions that they want, how they promote their businesses. So it's been great. A lot of businesses, like I said, they're coming into the city because of we do a lot of enforcements to make sure that attract businesses a lot and also make it business friendly to come in and do business in Dearborn Heights.
Thank you, Mayor Bazzi. And because this is a Q&A session, I'd like to open it up to see if there's anyone who has any questions as it pertains to the things that we've currently discussed here recently. No questions? I know it's cold. All right. Okay, thank you guys. I'm just going to segue to the next question that I have here. So this question is from Mayor Hammoud. How does the city plan to tap into its unique characteristics to foster innovation and position the city as a regional hub for workforce and talent?
Thank you for that question. So, obviously objective when I say Dearborn is the greatest city in the whole country. And it's uniquely positioned because we're also the home to the University of Michigan Dearborn. I see some folks from that institution as well as Henry Ford College. And we're the only K-14 school system in the state of Michigan, meaning that you can actually graduate with your associate's degree tuition-free in the city of Dearborn. So while the rest of the country has been debating tuition-free associates pathways, Dearborn's been doing it for decades. I'm actually a product of that. I graduated with nearly 40 college credits paid for by Dearborn Public Schools, which shaves a year off my undergraduate experience. We want to expand on that. We are uniquely positioned in trying to, employers want young folk who are throughout the southeast Michigan area who have a phenomenal education. And Dearborn has all those characteristics. We're one of the youngest cities in the state of Michigan. We have a lot of young people, and we have phenomenal educational institutions. That is the formula for success when it comes down to workforce. But the unique thing, one of the things that we're trying to tackle is this guaranteed jobs aspect. You might go to school, but on the application to get to college is a little bit difficult. The application when you graduate college, you need some internship experience in order for you to get that first job. They all ask for experience for that first job. It's like, well, how do you get it? And so what was great over the last year, we saw Henry Ford sign a partnership with the University of Michigan Dearborn and other regional universities, saying if you complete your first 2 years at Henry Ford College and you maintain a certain GPA, you don't need to submit an application. Your credits will automatically transfer and you'll be automatically accepted to some of these regional universities. That's the first check and the first barrier that was eliminated. Then we worked with Henry Ford College and Beaumont Health System, or Corewell, and asked ourselves, great, how can we eliminate another barrier? Well, we know that the largest 2-year nursing program in the state of Michigan is actually at Henry Ford College. And over the last year, we worked on a coalition. We had a workforce development team that we worked together over the city of Dearborn alongside Bloomberg and Harvard as a part of a 1-year fellowship. We talked about this idea of a guaranteed job. If you were to go to Henry Ford College of Nursing, can you get a guaranteed job upon graduation? And after about a year of going back and forth between these lawyers and these departments at Henry Ford College and Corewell, because everything always gets stuck in the legal department, we actually inked that contract. Not only did Corewell commit to hiring the nurses out of the Henry Ford College of Nursing across all their southeast Michigan facilities, they also committed to a scholarship which covers about 50% of the tuition while they go to that nursing school. And so now if you go to Henry Ford College, you not only have 50% less in tuition that you have to pay, you no longer have to think about where you're going to be working afterwards. The job is guaranteed. And if there's any signing bonus that Corewell is offering to just the general market, all those signing bonuses, the paying rate, is all applicable to all those students that are in the guaranteed job pipeline. That is something that's next level. Now we want to replicate this across industries. The goal of a 21st century workforce is to ensure that you can eliminate the barriers. We have so many qualified folk who are ready to work, but oftentimes don't know where to go and get started. Personally, I went to Fordson High School, greatest high school in the whole country. I never applied to college. University of Michigan Dearborn happened to come to school for on-site admissions. I happened to get accepted, and I never applied anywhere else. I had to work full-time throughout undergrad at my father's local grocery store, and for many of us in that position, you don't think about where you're going to apply, you just think about how am I going to make it, how am I going to begin to support my family. So when we begin to address some of these barriers that are stopping young people from getting that first job or getting to that institution further their learning, you begin to really tackle these needs that they have, and it's going to be transformative for us all together. You know, most recently, we just landed a cybersecurity workforce employer to come and settle here in the city of Dearborn. It took us about a year and a half. They're going back and forth between Dearborn and Miami. And it wasn't the weather. I'll tell you that. But we demonstrated the commitment and we positioned this unique K through 14 model as to why they should come to the city of Dearborn. And so with help of the state of Michigan, they actually took a building which we'll be announcing soon, but they're projected to have about 1,000 employees over the next 5 years. And with it, they want to launch a workforce development program, cybersecurity workforce program through our K through 14 system, even K through 16 system, so that the folks that are being trained right here in Dearborn will also have a guaranteed job with them right at the new headquarters that are established in the city of Dearborn. That's how we begin to improve our workforce development pipelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. That's very awesome, considering that cybersecurity is one of the leading career pathways for people right now today, with starting salaries of at least $80,000 to begin. So that's amazing. Mayor Bazzi, I have a quick question for you. What strategies are being implemented to strengthen community engagement and address the diverse needs of Dearborn Heights residents?
It's actually, our city is kind of unique. You know, we have just the way it's shaped. You know, we border several cities, and also a lot of people in the past, which I don't like when they consider like north, south, you know, east, west. You know, for the past so many years, that's the way they refer to the city is, you know, north end, south end, which is I hate using that. Even sometimes it's brought up at council meetings. So one of the things that I try to do, you know, especially with my administration, is you know, the city of Dearborn Heights is one city, it's one community, and we make sure that anytime there's an issue on either side of the town or anywhere in the city of Dearborn Heights, you know, all the residents are, you know, everybody's treated equally. And also, you know, what we did recently, we had, again, you know, we didn't really have an IT department, you know, so we were so far behind on IT services that we created with a new IT director, we created a site that any resident can actually go in, and any concern that they have, actually we used it a lot this weekend, you know, from the storm. We made sure that any residents that has an issue, we blasted it, that hey, you know, go, and because, you know, nobody's working, you know, on the weekend, but we do monitor the site, you know, that they can go create a ticket, and it doesn't matter who, if somebody has, you know, somebody from, you know, the north end, east end, you know, south, you know, west, it doesn't matter. They just put their address, what the issues are, and we try to make sure that it's addressed in a proper manner or be expedient. So that's one of the things we're trying to do, is make sure that all the residents know that, you know, we're here for them. It doesn't matter who they are, and make sure that you know, again, you know, everybody's treated equally, because that's one of the things that I've seen or I've heard, you know, when I was knocking on doors back in 2017 when I ran for council. That's some of the issues that I was hearing a lot, that hey, the previous administration, you know, doesn't treat us well, or, you know, they don't listen to us. So I make sure that anytime that we need something, you know, we always go and address the whole, you know, the whole city. And one of the things that people on near the Ecorse Creek, you know, that's what the biggest issues we're having in the city is, you know, flooding. I know Dearborn has had the issue several years ago as well, but Dearborn Heights has had the issue for years, probably 60 years or so. So one of the things we're trying to do is, it was never addressed, you know, and some of the residents always say like, hey, you know, we hear you guys talking, but nothing's being done. So we are doing stuff about it right now. So we're applying for a lot of grants, and that's one of the things that I wanted to go over. You know, we have a lot of grants for both the Ecorse Creek and also for the Rouge, you know, both watersheds. And we're trying to get as much funding as possible just to make sure that people feel comfortable to know that we're here for everybody, the whole city of Dearborn Heights as one city.
That's amazing, Mayor. Thank you. With that being said, I'd like to ask Mayor Hammoud to build off of that. I know the city of Dearborn has seen record investments in infrastructure and services, And I want to know, how do you plan to balance that record-breaking investments that you've received thus far and that you will continue to receive moving forward?
Nothing is guaranteed. I think that's the first thing I'll open up with. Right now is a government-rich time. You know, there are so many landmark pieces of legislation that came out of Congress allowing us to draw down those grant dollars, and we're taking every opportunity that we can. Last year we announced a $30 million investment in our Parks and Recreation system, which we're extremely proud of. And if you think of, you know, COVID, when everybody was locked indoors, the one place I saw most families go out to was to our green spaces and to our parks. These are areas where folks come to connect with their residents, with their neighbors, with their families, and try to make those memories that we all love and hold dear for the rest of our lives growing up in Dearborn. And so we have $30 million being infused there. We have 3 new economic parks that are being created that we call Peace Parks. And those are one in the west, one in the east, and one in the south. But we're also reinvesting in over 15 of our existing parks. We just announced that we're building 2 inclusive playscapes that we don't have anywhere in the city of Dearborn. We're spending $3 million to support a council and building these one-of-a-kind playscapes over at Crowley Park in the west end and at Ford Woods in the east end. We're also just being cognizant that although you have an investment in one park in one part of town, not all your families and your residents can make it to that park. So we're making sure that the investments we make are spread across equally all over the city of Dearborn. Secondly, we just announced another grant that we received. It was a Safe Streets grant. It actually took us 2 rounds to get this grant, but it's a $25 million infusion that will be put into Warren Avenue, from Warren and Lanyo all the way to Warren and Greenfield. And this part's, you know, the Warren Avenue really needs it. We actually knew that Wayne County was planning on resurfacing Warren Avenue in 2025 for somewhere around $5 million. So we actually used that as the pledge in this grant application. So without the city of Dearborn really having to put up any dollars, we said, hey, we know Wayne County's spending $5 million. If you give us your $25 million, here's what we want to do along Warren Avenue. This is going to be everything from facade improvement grants for all the businesses. We have a contractor, a local contractor that we've already brought on board, who's coming up with a unique facade for this business corridor. This will be improvement of all the sidewalks, all the lamps outside, putting in traffic calming measures, redoing all the roads, taking the opportunity as we dig up the road to also look at any water lines that need replacing, doing it all at once. And so we're taking 2024 as a long year of just planning and making sure that we get it right, and then hopefully breaking ground in 25 and 26, aiming for full completion. But that's, you know, in total, in our first 2 years, we've neared nearly $100 million in grants that we've received in the city of Dearborn. And to put that in perspective, our total city budget is about $135 million. And so it's pretty phenomenal that the work that we've been doing. And grants are more than just about submitting the application. There's a lot of politics to grants. Frankly, you know, I'd say 85% of the grant application is politics. Who do you know in what department? How can you keep pestering them until you get those dollars down? And if you know Zainab Hussein, my chief of staff, she knows just about everybody, and she's got no problem calling and asking. So anything that she's good at asking for something for the city of Dearborn, and we've been pretty blessed in receiving those dollars now. As it pertains to how you move forward and sustain such investments, one of the big things is just ensuring you have a balanced budget. You know, when we came in, we had lost the operating millage, supplemental operating millage of the city of Dearborn, which took off, you know, nearly $20 million in revenue. Then you also had the post-COVID valuation of office space. You know, if you were paying $40 a square foot, you knew your office space wasn't worth $40. So everybody submitted reassessing what their office space is worth. And we lost almost another $10 million out of the city budget just from reassessing, and those businesses had the right to do that. And so when you have a $30 million deficit, you really have to restructure the way the city does business in order for you to sustain itself, just like your house budget. If the income that you're bringing home is less than the expenses that you have, you're not going to make it. You can't keep drawing out of your savings. At some point, it's going to run out. And so we're proud that the last budget cycle, we passed the first structurally balanced budget in 20 years in the city of Dearborn. We're 100% making all of our payments for our retirees, retiree health care, our pension obligations, but also all the expenses that we have coming in. And that's something that had not been done ever before. You know, this is the 3rd year in a row, God willing, we'll be presenting a budget. We're 100% paying our obligation on retiree health care and on pensions. That had never been done before. And so not only are we keeping our promises to retirees, we're also keeping our promises to our city employees and to our residents. That the investments we're making, the services that we're offering, we also have a pathway to ensure that they're balanced and that they're sustained, not only for our generation, but God willing for generations to come.
Amazing. Thank you, Mayor.
I'd like to open it up to see if anyone has any questions. Anyone? Thank you.
I do. My family lives in the 4812 zip code, and if anybody here knows, it's the most expensive zip code when it comes to insurances, for car insurances and anything of that sort. Is there anything that the city can do, has done, plans on doing in order to alleviate some of that?
Thank you for the easy question. Well, these are very no questions, Saturday. My mom's an insurance agent, if you don't know, so I get this question, like 12 times a day. What am I doing to help insurance rates? The reality is a lot of it is controlled in the state of Michigan. There's a mathematical formula that's permitted, and insurance companies can use. One of the things working against us in 40126 is, claims tend to be higher than normal in 40126. And then also the cost of, to repair the damage tends to be higher than normal also, if you look at the claims data specifically. And so those are some of the unique things that we have to try to address. We tried eliminating in my time as state representative the ability to kind of, rate based on zip code. And so when you eliminate that, though, insurance companies try to think of new geographic territories that they can rate by, whether it's census tract or geographic region that they ultimately create using your credit score or your sex or whatever it might be. A number of factors that you would never think actually apply to your ability to drive, but insurance companies try to statistically prove that, oh, this makes a difference. And so we're working closely with our state legislators to see what other reforms are possible. One of the big things is, auto thefts have been on the climb across the country. Largely because we've had some manufacturing issues with you're driving a Kia or Hyundai. We've had some issues with some locals. And what we're trying to do is ensure that if those vehicles are stolen in that zip code on corporate lots or at manufacturing lots, that should not impact the rates for the residents who live in that neighborhood. So if a car is stolen off a Dodge lot, 48126, I'm not going to throw any local guy under the bus, those Dodge vehicles stolen off that corporate lot should not impact the rates in that neighborhood. That's one of the big things that we're advocating for right now in the state of Michigan, trying to see if we can get that changed. But it really is a state issue. We're doing our best to make sure that car accidents are down. That also helps. And so over the last year, enforcement has been drastically up. We saw an increase of about 100% in speeding and reckless driving tickets. We have a zero tolerance policy on reckless driving. We'll actually tow your vehicle right away. And we saw car accidents come down in the double digits. And if you're able to sustain that, then hopefully you can also sustain some rate reductions, God willing. And so we'll do what we can on our part. But also these young drivers, they just, your 16-year-old don't need a Dodge Challenger. Your 16-year-old don't need a Dodge Charger. Thank God they stopped making them. There's a Ford C-Max. If you've never seen it, it's beautiful. It's like 60 horsepower. Highly recommended for your children. It's safe. But it's it really starts at home also. People always ask, are you giving enough speeding and reckless driving tickets? And I say, listen, we give them. It's a double-edged sword. We're happy to be continually ticketing 100% up every single year. But when your neighbor has points on their record, it's damaging the rating for the whole zip code. Just understand that. And so I'm more than happy to ticket your neighbor's son, who's an asshole every morning. But when he gets those 4 to 6 points on his record, your insurance rates are going to go up 4 to 6 points. And so that's the other thing that we have to be cognizant of. So when we say we really need families to help us out in this problem, we really mean it, because it is a community impact on the entirety of how we help to hopefully improve insurance rates. And then part of this is just corporate greed. I can't say anything about that. Insurance companies, if you dig into it, actually act like banks. They don't make money off your rates. They make money off taking your dollars and investing those dollars and generating a return on it. And so we need some structural change over in Lansing, and God willing, we'll keep advocating for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hammoud. Any additional questions? Please. Thank you.
What initiatives are in place to address environmental sustainability and combat climate change locally?
What city? Dearborn has the most pollution, not Dearborn Heights. We have the most manufacturing in Dearborn. Not Dearborn Heights, but for us, one of the things for environmental that we're having issues. We talked about that several years ago. Is the Ecorse Creek, it was not monitored, and the flow, of water, and the stuff that was. I've seen mattresses actually that was dumped in the Ecorse Creek. And one of the things that, I'm on the board for the city's initiative for the Great Lakes Water Authority. And one of the things that we talked about for the last 3 years, on the board is flooding, the flooding issue. One of the things that I brought back, actually Ecorse Creek, nobody even knew what Ecorse Creek was. When you're on when you go to these conferences, you got about 350 mayors, every mayor around the Great Lakes, from every state and also from Canada. And one of the things that I brought forward, and since then actually it's gained momentum. They actually, people from Washington D.C. came to Michigan, to Dearborn Heights for a meeting. And last month they came again. We had a meeting with the downriver community to address the Ecorse Creek. And one of the biggest issues we have when we say environmental is stuff that goes through, when you get a flood, your home's flood or your garage flood, what goes in your garage, storages. You have your paint cans, you have a lot of toxic chemicals that you store in your garage. And guess what? When it's flood, it goes down the creek, either the creek, the Ecorse Creek or the Rouge River. So that's some of the stuff that we're working on. This is a very serious issue, especially when they talk about, contamination into the lake, because, the creeks both flow into the lakes. So we're actually trying to address that issue on the national level, both the U.S. and also Canada. So we have an initiative right now to address that. So there's a company called Stantec that actually took they have an initiative right now to see what we can do to clean up, to make sure that we don't have flooding, because flooding is a huge issue to the environment. You think, oh, it's just fresh water coming to the creek, but you don't know what's coming with the water, from the homes or the garages. So one of the things that we're trying to do is, one thing that's been talked about for probably the last 30, 40 years is a retention detention basin. It's going to be on Powers and Easter area. That needs to be an old incendiary. So the Army Corps of Engineers right now, we have money. Don't use the word study. Nobody likes the word study in Dearborn Heights. So we have a design. We're in a design phase right now, trying to design. The Army Corps of Engineers is doing a design for a detention basin. It's going to be an old incendiary. It's going to be roughly about $25 to $30 million project, and that's something we need to. We're working on a grant, trying to get money funded, so the city is not paying for it, or it's not coming from taxpayers' money. So that's one of the biggest projects we're trying to do to make sure that for the environment, make sure that we have clean water going through both the Ecorse Creek and the Rouge River.
Thank you, Mayor Bazzi. Yes, please.
Mayors of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, thank you for coming. Any discussion or about our new grant that we've got for our water meters in Dearborn Heights, thanks to our great city engineer, Ali D.
That was Councilman Constant, actually. I was hoping that I don't have any council we've been having a lot of meetings to discuss that, so I know that was going to be a tough question for one of the council members. Actually, we do have a grant for the water meters, so I've been holding off on water meters because the city has probably the oldest water meters in the state of Michigan in Dearborn Heights. We're just reading the water meters is becoming so complex. We have the parts that we need a lot. We can't buy them. Sometimes you have to go through. I don't want to use the word eBay, but we like every means we can do get those parts, to replace or repair, just to read the water meters. And I know I've been trying to hold out because they wanted to. Many years ago, we put a bond, and before my time, they put a bond for over $24 million for the CSO project and the water meters. And the water meters at the time, they predicted it was going to be, I'm talking like in 2019, they projected $8 million, and that's what they kind of allocated for the water meters for the entire city. Is roughly $8 million, and it's going to probably be twice the amount right now. And it was actually an estimate. It wasn't even bidded out. So one of the things that, the good thing about waiting is I didn't want to put another bond because, you know, the bond that we had previously, the previous administration it's coming from the water bills. And I know a lot of people talk about water bills. Why is the water so high in Dearborn Heights? It's because of that, because we're trying to pay for the bond money that we actually borrowed for the water meters and the CSO project. The CSO is the water separation that's mandated by Eagles, by the state. And we have to do water separations. We have several projects that we have to work on. And that's some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about today, is to make sure that we don't overburden the residents with trying to put a levy on the residents or try to put another bond, you know, on the residents. And again, you know, the residents will have to pay for that. So instead, by waiting, you know, it was good for us because we were able to get grant money to replace the water meters. And it's going to be at no cost to the residents. In addition to that, we still have a lot of lead lines that a lot of people don't talk about. You know, we have there's actually a city in Michigan that got an award because they were able to replace all the lead lines, and they were 100%, but then it was probably like, I think it was 10,000 people that live in the city. But they won an award in Chicago last year. And I'm trying to do the same thing. I want to win an award in the next year or two to make sure the city of Dearborn Heights has 100% no lead lines. So it'd be 0% of any lead lines in the city. So this is huge. You know, we're able to get grant money for the lead lines as well. So I know one of the congresswomen, she always says, you know, get the lead out. You know, Congresswoman Rakita Tlaib. And she's been helpful, you know, trying to get some of the grant money to make sure that we again, you know, help the residents and they don't have to pay extra tax or even levy on, you know, or the water bills. So we do have to pay for the bond that we have currently, that we took out, you know, about, 3 years ago. But I want to make sure that everything we do, try to make sure that we don't try to bond for more things, projects. You know, we're trying to go get funding from the county, the state, or federal to make sure that we have enough that we don't, again, overburden our residents. And the water meters was huge for us. You know, one of the things that we have a lot of water loss in the city of Dearborn Heights. So I think that's going to really help us. It's I don't want to mention the percentage, but it's pretty high. And again, you know, the residents are paying for that as well. So we want to make sure that, you know, I think once we replace all the water meters in the city, that it's going to really help out with the water bills.
Thank you, Mayor Bazzi. Are there any additional questions? Yes, please.
Good morning, Dearborn City Councilwoman Leslie Herrick. If we could please ask Mayor Hammoud to also address the issue about how we're addressing pollution and environmental challenges, especially in the heavy industrial area of Dearborn.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Leslie. The topic of environmental sustainability, topic of workforce, the topic of economic development, from my perspective, are all public health issues. I believe in this philosophy that of health in all policies. That each and every single decision that we make as city government is actually a public health decision. It's one that will impact the health of our residents or the health of our businesses in one facet or another. Which is why we propped up our public health department to tackle these issues in that form. So on environmental sustainability, environmental issues, there are really two that come to mind. We have our flooding and overall stormwater infrastructure. We also have air quality. When we first came into office with support of council, we began a 2-year design study, or not use the word study, we began a 2-year project to evaluate all of our storm infrastructure. We actually get back the results in the next 3 to 5 months. And what this will do is we actually are able to rebuild and reprogram what happened in 2021 with certain devices along all of our stormwater in order to understand how water is coming into our system, how water is exiting our system, to identify what possibly went wrong in 2021, and to lay out a pathway for how we try to avoid, to the best of our abilities, any future flooding happening in the city of Dearborn. Now, when we get back the results, it's going to be one of several formats. It'll be if you want to prevent 100% of flooding, no matter how much rain comes down, 15 inches in 2 hours, it'll cost X. If you want to prevent to 80% confidence, it'll cost you Y. If you want to prevent to 60% confidence, it'll cost you Z. And at that point, we'll have a conversation as a community, really as a whole, in determining what is the best pathway forward. And we've already begun working with EGLE, the State Department for Environment, and talking about, they have the Strategic Revolving Fund, which is a loan that they can give out at 1% interest rate, which helps beat the bond market. And then you can figure out how you can pay for it long term, but also seeking additional grants. And so today we've had about $30 million in grants that we have received, that we are currently programming on stormwater infrastructure across the city of Dearborn. And one of the most notable projects is we spent about $1 million on clearing out over 50 log jams across the Rouge River. And what that did was it actually allowed the water levels to come down in the Rouge River, but also to allow us to clear water faster out of the Rouge River. And so, Canton flooded most recently, a few months ago. And, Canton called us and said, FYI, we're pushing the exit button, they're dumping everything out. And so we pushed our exit button first, knowing that it was coming down with a last downstream community. But we saw that our water is able to traverse the Rouge River much quicker because we cleared out those log jams, which will help us in the long run. The second issue is really air quality. Thing called fugitive dust, if you're not familiar with it. It's basically, if you're driving through the South End, if you just wash your brand new vehicle, it'll be covered in soot by the time you leave. Because you have fugitive dust from these stockpiles of substances all over these factories, and it's an industrial hub. The reality is there's little that the city can do as it pertains to issues that go through state permitting. When I was a state legislator, we advocated for a tougher permitting. EGLE actually approves north of 98% of all permits that come through. And so for us, it didn't seem like it was actually an agency that prioritized people's public health. What we have been trying to do is actually utilize some CDBG dollars and other available grants to acquire industrialized parcels that aren't necessary for some of our major stakeholders. And so we actually have a half-mile stretch in one part of the south end of Dearborn of all industrialized land that folks were preparing to sell for trucking and trucking lots. And just a fun fact, mobile truck traffic pollution is actually not measured by the state of Michigan. And so when you have all these 16-wheelers coming through your neighborhoods, coming alongside your roads, the pollution that they are emitting is not regulated by the state of Michigan. And that's actually one of the largest sources of pollution that we have near our neighborhoods. So we began to acquire all these industrialized parcels the city of Dearborn did. And we're working with our public health department and our planners to establish what we call a green belt. We're going to de-industrialize these parcels through our zoning process. We're going to establish a conservation parcel definition, and it'll be a green belt. And so we'll build it out to help reduce air quality, help improve air quality, and also improve the noise quality for those residential neighborhoods in the area. That's one of the things that we're using. Second, there's a track out ordinance that was passed in 2019, something I advocated for then as a state rep. Track out, if you're not familiar with it, when a truck leaves an industrial parcel, it begins to bring all that debris with it onto the roadway. And so if you're driving on like Wyoming and Southern, it's one of the most polluted roads that you can come down anytime between 9 and 5. And residents absolutely hate it. And so we've actually been enforcing this fairly strictly. We shut down one company, stripped them of their CFO because of how poor their track out management was, going against all the ordinances. And the second, we ended up in court and received a stipulated court agreement where this corporation has to invest millions of dollars now to pave their entire parcel and put in all the preventative measurements in place to help reduce that track out. That's how you begin to tackle this issue from a local municipal level. You really have to be heavy-handed, unfortunately, but my perspective, being good corporate citizens within the city of Dearborn, means you want to be a good neighbor to those residents that have to breathe that air each and every single day. And so we're tackling it with all the tools that we have. And lastly, I'll bring up, we have a new ordinance coming forward called the bulk storage ordinance. Sometimes when you drive through the south end, you'll see these stockpiles that, are north of 50 feet high. We're actually trying to bring that down to 25 feet. All the data tells you that if a stockpile is about 25 feet or less, and you have the appropriate tools on that parcel, you can actually limit how much fugitive dust is emitted off that parcel. So we're going to bring that down to 25 feet. And then secondly, there are certain compounds that should not be housed outdoors. Things like packed coke, things like metallurgical coke. which are actually fairly dangerous to anybody who's going to inhale it that immediately dust comes across your parcel. So we're going to require that those types of substances have to be stored indoors, which currently does not happen. So we think those two major changes will also help improve drastically the public health and the environmental sustainability in the city of Dearborn. So it'll take time. It's a little bit more heavy-handed in nature, but these are the tools that local governments have. We're not the state permitting authority. We don't have that regulation before us. We work closely with our state legislators, but we do what we have with the resources that we got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hammoud. Are there any further questions? Okay. I'll go here, and then there.
I'm the other city council person from Dearborn Heights, and I'd like to thank our mayor because he established an Ecorse Creek Commission a few years back. I was able to chair that. And I do have some good news. Because of our mayor, our new city engineer, and our CBDG department, we do have a list of 16 homes along the Ecorse Creek that are being asked if they're ready to sell their homes. And FEMA is going to pay 90% of the cost. We only have to pay 10 from our city. If anybody wants to check for a neighbor and see if they're on the list. But thank you again, Mayor. We are doing something.
Go ahead, Mayor.
So one of the things when I took office, I walked some neighborhoods. I wore two shoes, good shoes. Just walking to neighborhoods. I was really fascinated by just residents, what they have to say. And one of the things that the residents around the Ecorse Creek were saying, basically, they just wanted to move out of their homes. They can't sell their homes. And we started working with the state, federal, trying to buy some of these homes, trying to get grants, FEMA grants. And we were able to get several grants in the past few years. And what we're doing is we're buying these homes and we're tearing them down. And we got to turn these into green space. So that's the other thing that's going to be great for the environment. We're trying to, we're going to try to come up with a project. We're working with DTE, actually DTE, I think. With DTE trying to put some, maybe some solar panels over there, trying to put, parks. So it's a big stretch that we have. It's got to be like from Inkster all the way down, maybe just a few blocks east of Telegraph. Whatever homes we can try to purchase, and again, we solicit this to residents. Like, hey, if you want to put your, if you want to sell your home, we basically there's a process we have to go through with FEMA, try to get what the market value is. So if a home is worth $100,000, they can't ask for $200,000. So whatever it's appraised by, and also it's acceptable to the FEMA team. So we do have a team in place to make sure that we try to get some of these homes, to purchase these homes. And again, one of the things with our city engineer, Hanidib, he's been on the ground. He actually spends more time in the field than in the office trying to talk to residents, also especially along the creek or that area. So because a lot of residents do have issues, and one of the most important things is a lot of businesses, they want to move into that area. And there's a lot of vacant buildings, and we want to make sure that we fill those. But one of the things that, on the ground, talking to a lot of business owners and people, they want more businesses on Van Born or that area, especially just south of Beach Daily or south of Inkster. So what we're trying to do is try to help out, try to build, not just a detention basin I talked about earlier, but also these homes that we tear down. We got to try to make them a detention also, try to alleviate some of the water, going into the creek. So that's something that we're working on, try to make it like a green space, maybe parks. So we have a plan in place, and we just have to, try to get grants. And there's a couple of potential grants for these areas to turn them into green space or parks. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we'll go right here and then in the back.
Hey, I recently moved to the area. I work in technology and artificial
I'm sorry, so what area?
Dearborn Heights, right on Rose Street.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So do you guys think about artificial intelligence? I'm seeing data, right? It's poised to increase productivity by 80% across all industries. $3 to $4 trillion of opportunity. And I was just thinking about that IT department and access to information and using artificial intelligence for that. So do you think like that? Is that in your strategy or not?
Actually,
Or do you need help? And I'm ready to help.
give me a resume. But you know, one of the things, so you know, I'm an aeronautical engineer, so I have my master's degree in aeronautical engineering. And so many years ago, when I did get my degree, actually I used to work for Boeing aircraft company. And I remember about 20-some years ago when I worked for Boeing, you know, we were able to build an airplane that actually can fly itself. But guess what? A lot of airlines, they want to buy an airplane that has no pilot in it. So we had the technology more than almost like 25, 30 years ago to do that. Especially, I was in the military, even in the military we're able to do that as well. So one of the things is a lot of people, they kind of shy away from AI, you know, from you know, technology. So, you know, one of the joke I'll tell you. So at Boeing, when I worked at Boeing, actually, we used to say, the future airplanes we're going to do is or back in the day, we're going to put a pilot and a dog in the cockpit. So there's like, okay, well, what is the pilot and, you know, what is the dog in the cockpit for? Well, the dog will actually bite the pilot if he touches any of the controls. So then they said, what is the pilot's job? Well, his job is to feed the dog. So we've had that technology for many years. I like technology, and that's one of the reasons, you know, and I want to thank Mayor Hammoud for that one, for tripling the budget for IT services. And so we have an amazing IT director, and he's trying to build that department. But I'd like to get your information, you know, anything with AI, you know, anything like, I mean, I'm for it. You know, I like technology, and that's some of the stuff that we're changing in the city of Dearborn Heights. A lot of things that we want to go through, and it's going to be a lot of, you know, like I said, you know, AI also try to see what the residents, do some training also with we have a lot of seniors in our city, so we want to make sure that we train them. So for anything like paying their bills online or the apps, you know, we lack that. We were so far behind on doing even something so simple, you know, paying your bills online, and we didn't have that. So we're trying to move into that direction, you know, just to make sure, especially like today, nobody wants to come in, pull a permit, or pay their taxes or pay their water bill. They can just go through and just do everything online or their app or something that we can come up with. But again, you know, we do need to train a lot of our residents. You know, like my mom is, for example, I can tell her how to retrieve a message, you know, and like 4 or 5 times, you know, then I have to keep, you know, because, you know, they just don't know. And so this is something I want to try to come up with, you know, for our seniors, to make sure they have something that's going to be easy to use, you know, something that, you know, that they can make their life a lot simpler. So I do appreciate that question, and I'm willing to listen if you have something, especially as Dearborn Heights president.
Thank you, Mayor Bazzi. I'll here in the back.
Okay. Wanda Eunice. This morning on the radio, I heard where the city of Dearborn has signed a contract with Orkin to eliminate the rats that go into the sewers. And is that a fact? What's going on?
Yeah, so it's a part of our subterranean strategy, and so I'll open up by saying it's entirely safe. And so, you know, if you have rats in a city, you don't have a rat problem, you have a food source problem. Rats are eating something that's welcoming them into the community. And if you know anything about Dearborn, we have the best food in the whole country. And so you probably have the rats with the greatest palate in the whole country. And so we've begun to do a few things. You know, luckily the top 50 rat list came out. Dearborn's not on it. I'll put that out there. But we want to be proactive in our strategy. So last year we did a small pilot. We took like 100 manholes and we did some rodenticide, basically warfarin that goes down those manholes and it stays above the water line. These are sewer lines, not any of our drinking water lines. And rats tend to eat it. You know, they go to our sewers in the cold weather. They're not above the ground. They tend to eat it, and then in a matter of 1 to 3 days, they die. Hopefully, that's the plan. But we have like a multifaceted strategy. So we saw some small progress with this pilot. We said let's expand it to all corners of the city this year, and then measure come in the spring the number of rat sightings that we have relative to last year's data. I know more about rats than I possibly want. And so we're actually going to heat map. We'll have Orkin goes out every single month. We measure how much meat is being eaten. We'll measure how the rat sightings. We'll create a heat map across the whole city to determine if the subterranean investment actually makes sense. And so it's a $180,000 investment. A part of that investment is one time just to set it up so that you can drop the bait. And then there's an annual recurring fee if you like in order for you to address it. But some other things that we're doing also is we're trying to be a little bit more sanitary in our downtown districts. We actually now power wash our dumpster enclosures in downtown areas twice a month. Try to get any grease, oil, or all that food out of there. We've been very heavy-handed in the ticketing. You know, we have some businesses that have been ticketed like 18 times in the last 3 months. And we're taking a zero-tolerance policy approach with it. And so if our director or technician comes out, if they see a bag of garbage on the floor, they're actually opening it up to see whose stuff is inside of it, and you're getting the ticket accordingly. And we're taking you to court on that because we think that it's better for you to have a ticket than it is for us to have a rat in our downtown district. Because one setting is all it would take to emerge on social media and your whole downtown district would go down. So we're trying to be very smart about it. We're also working in our residential neighborhoods to educate them about what they can do to eliminate any food sources that they have. And so we're working with our CDBG department as well as our neighborhood services division. And in this year's budget, we'll be exploring a front porch and stair replacement program in areas that qualify. So if you have a very bad front porch or back deck, we will assist you with putting up the funds to eliminate that back deck. Typically these wooden decks that have that cross fencing where rats tend to hide under. We'd like to eliminate it, use some new concrete steps, and eliminate the possibility for any rats to stay underground. And so we're going to launch that program hopefully after the budget passes, which will be around June, July-ish, and entering the end of the summer. Also as another means to prevent rats from coming into our city. And so we're really working above ground and underground. There's a lot of people that have concern, but we want to first and foremost say that it's 100% safe. We're working with Orkin. We're doing it the appropriate way. We also installed owl boxes. So we're really looking at every possibility. So owls tend to eat rats. That's their food of choice. It can take up to 3 years for an owl to move into the owl box that you put up. But an owl also has like a 1 to 3 mile radius. Any rats that they see, I think they'll eat up to a dozen a day. As I said, I know more about this than I ever want. We explored rat birth control. Rat birth control, it's a real thing. It's like a little jello that the rats eat, but they have to eat it every 3 days in order for them to stop having rat babies. And so it's a little bit more taxing on our human power. But we're really thinking outside the box. And another low-hanging fruit was this spring, we actually ordered trash can lids for all of our trash cans at all of our city parks. We have over 500 garbage bins in city parks with no trash lids on them. When you have a windy day or a very busy day at the park, those tend to be the first food source for potential rats. And so, again, we're trying to tackle it where we can and try to educate residents about the programs that we're doing. I know there was some cause for concern, but I just want to try to alleviate those concerns and let people know it's 100% safe. And we're doing things according to the law. So, God willing, come this spring, you'll see a heat map with not much heat on it. And I see Councilman Paris, the question to this? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mayor Hammoud. I think we have enough time for a few more questions, so I'm going to go here, and then there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this event and to both mayors from respective cities. I just have a question for either one of you or both, if you'd like to answer. We talked about some quality of life issues earlier, and in particular, everybody sees the traffic safety problems. We all know it. We're not unique here. It happens in many other communities. But a question I have too is still dealing with similar issues that affect all of us. Is what are our communities doing about domestic violence? What are they doing about drug overdosing? And what are we doing about not just the opioids, but the drug overdosing? But what are we doing about these quality of life issues internally in our cities? Because, we get the crime briefs, we hear things going on in the communities. Both mayors know, things. But what are we doing to start to address some of these issues? And then the mental health intervention also. All three of them are kind of interrelated. Sometimes they affect families with all three. So just from the onset, what are we doing to address some of these issues? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Councilman. So There's a few things that can be done. And so in the city of Dearborn, we actually have a social worker from Access embedded within our police department. And what happens is there's a co-response model. So they go out together, make sure the scene is safe. Then at the Access social worker actually does all the follow-up. And the goal is to try to ensure that that resident or that individual suffering from whatever issue might be has all the wraparound services that they need to try to prevent them from having to utilize emergency services ever again. Get them on the pathway to recovery or whatever it might be. For domestic violence, obviously they're taking in. We have, I see the daily reports as well. I'll focus on substance use. So that's one program that we currently have. I've actually been digging into programs across the country. One of the most successful programs, accordingly, they call the Hammoud's program. It's in Oregon. We actually met with the mayor and we spoke with their police chief. And what we found was the Hammoud's model is actually not a good fit for the city of Dearborn. The reason is cities of Dearborn's size and larger tend to have a very big unhoused population or homeless population. The city of Dearborn, thankfully, doesn't suffer from a very large homeless population. And in that program, the folks that they treat tend to come right back into the system. So they pretty much drive them to a homeless shelter, and that's pretty much a check for success. And for us, that wouldn't be a metric of how we identify success in our program. So we're really focused on this co-response model to see what the data shows. Are we preventing folks from entering back in the system? With Access's partnership, there's a number of investments that are coming. So they're building a brand new substance use center in southeast Dearborn, which we're really excited for. That I think we should be breaking ground this year, and end of construction should be next year. And there'll be some beds for short-term stays that will be available and online, which we'll be partnering with them through the city of Dearborn. Plus, we have Corwell's mental health facility also in Dearborn, which we're happy to have. I sit on Corwell's advisory board, and so we're able to build strong relationships there, making sure we have the services and the beds that we need. Our public health department put out an Narcan vending machine over at the train station. In less than a year, we've had thousands of units of Narcan distributed at a very major station. Now, folks will say, why'd you place it at the train station? Or does Narcan doesn't prevent the overdose from occurring. But what Narcan will prevent is hopefully that someone's life from being lost. That's the goal of the Narcan vending machine. And what we did was we actually did a heat map of all the overdoses across Dearborn. We found that they actually largely tend to happen at the hotels and motels along Michigan Avenue. Those are actually the hotbeds for most of the overdoses. And if you talk anecdotally, take the qualitative analysis to our firefighters and police officers, they'll tell you that's the exact scenario of what's happening. And so that's why we placed it at the train station, because it happened to be in the center of the heat map of where those overdoses were occurring. What we're also doing is we're ticketing these hotels and motels that aren't taking proactive or preventative measures to prevent these incidents from happening within their establishment. You know, if somebody's coming in and just paying cash, they're not looking for any signs of domestic violence or possible abduction, things of that nature, we will ticket for them right then and there. And so, we had a motel that went through a nuisance abatement board a few years ago, shut them down for 2 years. And so we're not afraid to do that also, to hold these institutions accountable, ensuring that they have a safe place that they're operating, and hopefully not bringing any such activities throughout the city. But for anybody suffering, what we also try to say is, you have a whole city that's here to support you. Addiction is a lifelong disease. Recovery is a lifelong pathway and process. And we try to ensure that we're there. We have a behavioral health specialist starting soon within the public health department under this month. And we have a few $100,000 that we've received from the opioid settlements with the larger companies. And so the city of Dearborn is trying to work to identify if we are not the ones who should be distributing the money, other local organizations that are doing phenomenal work that we can partner with to disseminate those funds to help try to prevent substance use to the best of our abilities. Because in the two pockets of spending that tend to happen, treatment and prevention, I'd say 90% of funds tend to go towards treatment. Treatment is great, but we need to shift the dynamic and spend a whole lot more money towards prevention. And if we're able to do that successfully, you can hopefully make some progress on it.
Thank you, Mayor Hammoud.
I want to get started with, I'll say a few things, then I'm going to give the mic to the chief, some of the programs we're working on. I can tell you for the last several years, when I was on the ground working with a lot of residents, with students from different schools also, and opioid is a serious issue in our city as well. And one of the things that we were doing back in the day, is before COVID days, is we had this program called Chasing the Dragon. It's a partner with the FBI, the DEA, and also the U.S. Attorney's Office. We go to different areas, and it basically talk about the opioid issues that we're having, not just in Dearborn Heights, just throughout the whole state, and what needs to get done. So one of the things that I did is part of reorganize the city, because again, you have to adjust to what the residents want. Some of the things that the residents are bringing up to my office is obviously the speeders, the issues with drugs, opioid, and a lot of concerns that we had in the city. So I went outside and I got Chief Hart, he'll speak in a second, and so he came from Novi. He retired from Novi. Also, he was a chief in Saline. But also, what I did is I was very fortunate to have Director Vanderplow. He's an ATF special agent in charge, so he retired from ATF. So I was lucky to bring in the federal side, and also Westland. So we're like, many years behind, with where Dearborn and Westland was. So Director Swopes, I brought him he retired from Westland, so we brought him just to have a complete, police department, just to address some of the issues that the city of Dearborn Heights, have. So I'll have the chief, actually, he has several programs, and he'll talk about the Department of Justice as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jared Hart. I'm the Chief of Police in the city of Dearborn Heights. On February 28th, I'll celebrate my 2-year anniversary here at the police department, and the mayor spoke about my pedigree, so to speak. I'm very, very honored to be here today, to be in the presence of the mayors, and I know that we have a lot of partnerships. So those are some of the things that we're working on here to tackle some of the crime issues in our community. Assault and battery, aggravated assault, and stalking. Those are our top 3 crimes in the city of Dearborn Heights. We recently started a CompStat process looking at our data to find ways that we can improve service delivery to our community. And through that CompStat process, we've identified the issues with domestic violence, because the reality is someone's not walking down Telegraph or Van Born and somebody's getting out of a car and assaulting someone. These are issues that are within the homes within our communities. So we do work with access, not only for the after overdose follow-up. So when someone overdoses, we're actually sending a police officer out to the home and trying to intervene with the friends and family of that individual, so we can try to provide those services to them to get them to make better choices in the future. Is it rehab? What may that be? So we're also, our corporation counsel and the mayor and I met with Kim Worthy, our prosecutor, on Friday. We're trying to start a juvenile court, because a lot of this behavior that we're seeing, it's not just partners or spouses. It's brothers and sisters who are stabbing each other at the dinner table. Okay? So we have to have a multifaceted approach to how we're dealing with the domestic violence and the substance abuse. And sometimes those 2 issues, many times, are hand in hand, right? There is a substance abuse problem, and it's turning into a domestic issue. It touches all of our lives. It touches Chief Hart's family, and just probably about everybody in here has somebody struggling with some sort of substance abuse. And finally, I'm going to close with, because I know everybody wants to get to work, I strongly encourage you to go to the Department of Justice, Community-Oriented Policing Services, the DOJ COPS office. We are engaged. We're the only police department in the United States who's undergoing an organizational assessment. And a lot of the issues that I've heard brought up today, we're addressing with the Department of Justice to provide better service delivery and to be the very best police department that our residents deserve. The mayor challenged me 2 years ago to deliver a world-class police department, and that's exactly what I'm going to do alongside my directors. So thank you all so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much. In the effort of respecting everyone's time and getting everyone back home safe and sound, I want to take the time to thank you for the opportunity to serve, and I look forward to working closely with you all in this exciting journey. Thank you, Mayor Bazzi and Mayor Hammoud, for your time today. Maureen, I'd like to turn it over to you for any closing remarks, and I'm going to sit down.
Thank you, Aisha. On behalf of the Dearborn Area Chamber of Commerce, we would like to thank all of you for attending the Tale of Our Cities. Thank you to our mayors for their time, their leadership, and sharing the city's directions and ambitions with us today. Thank you all. Have a great day. Stay warm. Be safe.